So welcome to Bunny's Designs. This is a live stream with live peoples in chat having a natter, and recorded for Ustream.tv and YouTube for people to watch at their leisure. I'm working in the Harry Potter colour book. I think this is the first one because it has the young Harry in it, and we're at the purple bus page. I call it the night bus. So in part one, I took out, I think, 42 pencils, which were my palette. So I was testing colours to match them up all around the page because I want this to be photorealistic if I can. And I made up a bit of a sky because the sky was different. Again, I don't like that in a colour book because it's confusing, but so we've made a bit of a darker sky, but it probably wants darkening up. But I haven't set the pastel, so I've got to remember to put a piece of tracing paper. I find tracing paper the best. Sometimes you can get thicker tracing paper, and I've pinned it just over there so I can still get to the bus for purple, but I'm not going to put my hand on and smudge it. I've got my damp baby wipe to catch the dust if I make too much, and I have my eraser for making some highlights. I've actually got 43 because I've got white out as well, and I've got my blender. But I'm just going to try and get all the colours of this bus, and there's quite some different ones. We go from a violet colour to pale, and then it goes really dark at this side because this side of the bus is in the shadow. So I'll zoom in and you can see how lightly that I want to kind of put. Oh, thank you. Thank you. I didn't have my volume on very loud, so we'll zoom in. And I've put a little bit of blue tack, so I'm just going to have to move the camera up slightly. So I'm not on a kind of. I must have moved I moved my camera when we were looking at Alpha yesterday. So I hope that's in frame and in focus. I think it is. Can we read a pastel pencil colour? See if I can just get that slightly better. I think that's slightly better. The other thing I've done is taken a photograph of all the pencils, so that this is going to take a long time, this page, so I can shut the page up. I don't know whether that's. I think the pale sepia was going to be. I don't know why I've got the pale blue out. Sometimes I can't remember what I'm doing, so let me just have a look at this pale blue here. I don't know why that's out. I'll just leave it on top there. I can't remember why it's out. But at the moment I'm using violet, which is P260. And then I've got dioxazine purple, which is the darker purple, and I've been using violet oxide for the kind of in-between colour. And then I used lavender P250 just for that very, very pale highlight there. Now the colours are a little bit darker. Let me see if I can play with the colours. Let's see if we can just get. That's better. So it's almost a pinky purple in there. And if I show the bus colours, that's what we're looking for. So it's a very light touch, so you don't waste your pastel and your paper. So you don't waste your pastels. So I'm taking the violet oxide, and I'm just going to go very carefully over the dioxazine purple because I want it to kind of blend into this dark one probably better than it is. So again, this is the lightest, scratchiest surface. Just have to get to there. So we'll just take it to there and we can see how we're going to get on. And sometimes if you don't have if you have a blunt pencil, you won't get any lines. So you can change direction without being worried. I'm going to take that there. So I'm going to take my blending tool, and it's quite dark and dirty because it's been doing the clouds and the sky. So I want to clean that, and I just kind of stroke it across the baby white, but the baby white actually got a little bit dry now, so I'm just going to wet that baby wipe again. And if you dunk a baby wipe in the edge, just in the centre, and then you can roll it, it actually wets the entire baby wipe again. Tight Yorkshire lass. But if there's nothing on it, then I don't really want to be throwing it away. And I do, when I used to use mixed media, I used to keep mine to make pages and to make interesting textures. There's something wonderful about baby wipes when they're dried. They're kind of like paper, and they're full of colour. Oops. Right, so I'm going to take this here and blend it. It doesn't really matter if I get it on the white area, on the really, really shiny highlight, because I can take that off. And again, I'm not rubbing in too dark. I'm just stroking the page in little circular motions. Movements. I am turning into Hilda Baker because I'm getting all my words mixed up. They're mixed up. I want a real gentle transition from the violet to the darker colour. And again, that's a really nice thin layer, because remember, we can't do much with layers on shiny paper. So basically what we're doing is rubbing in it to make it a stain. We're staining the paper really. And because they're very, very highly pigmented, these pencils. So we're using dioxidine purple. Again, if you get a few marks that you're not sure of, or if you want it a little bit darker, you can go in again just to have a play. To make sure it's a dull colour. So I kind of like that. I think that works quite well. If I don't like the purple, I can take it off. So if we take, I think it's maybe a little bit too pink, although it actually looks pink there. I don't really like it, so I'm going to take that off because I'm not really happy with that. And I was using the sky for a highlight, so I'm going to go back to the kind of the grungy end. So I'll keep the sharp, bright, sharp edge of the eraser for when I want to do some sharp highlights. So if you just very carefully, and remember this has been blended, so it's not going to all come off, but of course what it's left me is a nice highlight. And again, you've got to remember, you cannot brush this with your fingers because it'll smudge. So if I put the tiniest amount in the centre, I can take my small blender. I have a little tiny blender. Oops, I was just thinking I might try the little round one, but I have a soft blender here, which is, it's called a soft one. I'll just try that just to see if I can manipulate. Got to make sure it's dry though, otherwise I'll turn it into a watercolour, and I don't want to do that yet. Just want to blend this, and it's a softer blend. It's not as rough as this, but again we do need to get this. You can see it's kind of squishing all over, but it is a softer blend. And that's not going to look very much, but when we get this dark dark purple again, it's going to be okay. It's going to be really nice. So I'm going to put a bit more of that onto there. And again, that lovely soft blend. We can just take that to there, and then just want to take off that highlight. There we go. So what that's done is just brought that highlight back, but we won't notice it until we get these colours under here and all this darkness about. I'm just going to look at the velvet again, the violet colour. So this is a violet, so we're going to go this way with the violet colour. Again, just very carefully. So we've got the light going that way and the shadow going that way, and then we've got the ridges and the bits of the bust that are different. So if we put the flat colour down first and sort the light out, we can then think about what we're going to do with highlights. So I'm going to take that all the way across just carefully, because there's just about enough for me to get a blend. See, when I blend with this, it's slightly different. I kind of like the firmer one, but you've got to practice with a photocopy paper or page you don't really like. Have a practice and decide whether you like cotton wool buds or you like makeup applicators, sponges, all sorts. Yeah, Hilda Baker. She used to go, "Oh, what are you incinerating?" I was watching. I say I had to watch this video to see if I would stop waffling, and I said a word, but I didn't finish the end of it, and it sounded ridiculous. I've forgotten what it was now. And I thought, oh my goodness, are you losing your marbles? Because I won't be able to stream if I'm losing my marbles. So this side of the bus has to be different. Now, again, it seems to be darker. Yes, I think it's a darker stain, so we can put a tiny bit of seal. We're going to use seal, maybe. Maybe seal might be a little bit too much. We'll just have a practice. What we want is a darker area. Oh, that works quite well. I'll just try the blue. I think the blue might be slightly better because this seal is very aggressive. It's very dark, it's the seal colour. I love it for shadows, but it's just a little bit too much perhaps. So what we're trying to do is we've got dioxidine purple and we want to just build a little bit of a shadow next to it. but not too much. I don't know what to put. I think I might actually put French ultramarine there. Let's have a look. I think I'm going to put French ultramarine over it. I think that's going to just give it enough blue. Remember to try to clean your little blending tool. So if we go over that one and then go over that one. Yeah, so that's better. It's not as aggressive as that dark. I'm going to leave that because it's just that too dark is that one. So we're going to put on these shaded areas here that they've indicated is shade. I'm going to put the lightest touch of French ultramarine, because remember we can't blend, we can't build layers, sorry. But what we can do is blend colours. So we've got the same layer, we've got the same amount of colour, half of it is French ultramarine and half of it is dioxidine purple, and that's going to give us a lovely natural shadow colour. For dioxidine purple, without being too black, because remember this bus is painted in exactly the same colour all over. The only difference is the light's hitting it in at different angles and different amounts of light, and you've got the diffusion of light with night, because without natural daylight colours don't exist, which is a whole new ball game. I want to try and get a natural kind of flat colour, so I've kind of gone over the edges. So what I can do now is take the eraser and remove all that darker tone. Now if that was in reality, I wouldn't have a line round it, it would just be a natural blend. So that now is I keep putting my little paintbrush somewhere. Ah, there it is. So just very carefully, and I didn't do it carefully, I smushed it. I shouldn't have done. So I'm going to have to go back in there, take off some more. Oh, Karen says it's fibro fog. That's okay then. I like fibro fog. Yeah, fibro fog's good. Unless you're permanently in the fog, and then you've got a lot of trouble. Right, so we'll have a go with that. So that's got that. Again, this isn't a fast job. This is kind of, I want to do this. I'm just going to put that ultramarine away. So if you were going to mix a colour, if you had a dioxide purple, but it depends how you make your purple, but however you've made your purple, if you're doing watercolour, acrylics or oils, if you've made your your colour with, say, French ultramarine, and you've made your purple like that, so what you want to do is take a little bit of your purple to one side of your palette, a clean side, and then just add a touch, just the tiniest pinprick of blue to it, and that will give you one shade darker, because you're using the same one. The other way to do it is to add the tiniest touch of its complementary colour. So purple would be yellow. No, purple's orange, blue's yellow. I always get those two mixed up. So you want a tiny touch of orange, the tiniest amount, and that will give you a wonderful shadow for your purple without adding black, because black will be too stark. And again, a little bit of a blow, and then hopefully that should be slightly darker. It might not be. It looks actually slightly lighter, but it doesn't matter. Again, little tiny movements. We don't want any streaks in there really. Which is why I do prefer this angle, because it tends to blend, and I prefer the firmer one because you don't get any lines, and it really does push that into the paper. The softer blenders I'm not so keen on this type of paper, but that's the angle I want to work at. But of course you can't see what I'm doing, so I have to do this. So it's never going to be absolutely perfect because this is a slightly different angle. Now we have got a different colour, but whether it's darker, don't know. It's a little bit darker. I think we can darken it up a little bit, so see what that does. But again, you know, you've got to experiment. We don't want to make it blue, it still wants to be purple. Putting probably extra purple on it might work, because as I said, we've got just enough room for another layer on this shiny paper. So sometimes actually that's quite nice. So that's actually 2 layers of dioxidine purple. That worked better. If you were working with a very opaque acrylic paint or oil, it would make a difference because your first layer is going to be the same one. So you need to change it slightly. And so I'm going to just bring all that down here. I'm going to get rid of that blue then, because I don't like that blue. I didn't like it. It didn't work. The insides here are a little bit darker as well, inside the bus frames. So I'll go all over with one layer. But these are slightly darker, so you can. And I seem to have got quite a nice flat plane on that corner, so it's working quite well. And even though I wanted it slightly darker, there's no point pressing on because this paper will not accept any more pastel than it's taking now. So there could be a bark alert. And so if you wanted a really nice blend, you could go over the lines because you can erase things, but it depends. If you wanted a pure white, you'll never get that back to pure white really. So there is hardly any pencil at the end of this, but it's still doing quite well. So we just want to double check here. So that's going to be the pale one because the light's hitting it that way, and then that's going to be the dioxidine paper, so actually that's the wrong one. So I need to go to the violet, which is 260, and if I do this it'll remind me that on this side of the bus is the pale colour. And then on this side before I do the underneath, I'm going to just have a look and see what was in that window, because otherwise I'll be working in there, and I would have. I don't suppose it matters if I do that. Just going to use that little bit of darker purple because it's going to be a slightly different colour. And don't worry about any highlights because they're going to be put on at the end. And again, it doesn't look very purple, but see if I can just kind of doesn't look at all purple. That looks purple, but I don't know what my hands look like. I don't know what my hands look like. Right. Has anybody got any questions? How are we doing for time? Just want to see. We obviously know that that's a bar that comes down. That's the back of that particular bit. So that's not so bad. It's this silly thing in here. I can't actually remember what it is. It shouldn't be. It shouldn't be a grid. So that's what's confusing me. Just have a very quick look at the picture. Excuse me. So we want the Harry Potter night bus, and that should bring sorry, there could be a bark alert. Not going to let him out. Not going to let him out. So there we go. Now I found that one, which looks like come here and sit down, Alfie. Thank you. Good boy. So this looks like the official one. Bear with me 2 seconds. My thing is very slow. Oh. That's not what I expected. There it is. So I don't know what we can do. I don't know what I can do up there. It's supposed to be a kind of a grid. We'll just have to make it a metal grid. I think that's going to have to be a metal grid because we can't really do anything else. Down here is going to be all these highlights, which we've got this pale blue out for. I think we've got this oxidine pale colour. In fact, I've got an idea. Let's just put. I should have done this first, actually, shouldn't I? Yep, I should have done this first. So this bit's got a bit of white. And, there's a bit of white there. And then we kind of have we put the white on first. The purple's going to adhere to this. Just to get a bit of interest, on there. That's going to be very dark down there, but this side could have a bit of highlight. So we've put some white on there. I'm not going to blend it, I'm just going to put the dioxidine purple over the top. And we can see how it works in this little bit here first. So, to blend that into there. Again, forget about adding extra highlights and lowlights. We just want to get that highlight on that edge of that bust. So putting that white underneath first has stopped the purple. So if I move that very down, very carefully there, turn that round. So again, dioxidine purple. I'm going to make myself a coffee in a second because I'm getting a bit kind of croaky. So this side of the bus is dioxidine purple, which is P280, and the other side, which is the side that's having the light, is P60 violet. So we've got, I don't know if you can see the little marks. That's where I've put the white. So where it's white there's nothing, and where it's grey that's all the white, if that makes sense. And again we just kind of and I know there's going to be some darker greys, but again what we said was we would get the basic colour down, and then we'd worry about really bright highlights. And again I am scribbling, but I'm lightly scribbling, so and I'm moving the pencil. Oops. So we don't have, I'm not going over the white if I can help it, because that's going to give me a natural blend. So just move that across. A little bit of a blow, but I don't think there's much there. Just actually move that out of the way because it is touching the paper. Just so I've got quite a lot of purple on the end of here, but I'm not really particularly bothered because this is kind of going to be pale and then dark and then pale and dark, and I can move that around because it's got to be a bit kind of interesting, and probably should do the whites first. I think I'll clean the whites first because They are quite shiny highlights on that bit. So the white's going down, and then we can blend that in then. So we want small circular motions where we want it gently blended, but then when we want some kind of stronger highlights, we need to be a bit kind of directional. So these are down, so don't want circular motions in those. That wants to be kind of streaked down to colour. And don't forget we can put the darks in to make that kind of a real dark colour. So what we've managed to do is get just a few highlights on that bus. And then of course down that section there it's got to be quite dark, but again we're just putting a very, very simple coating down, ready to go into more kind of details later, because once you put the second layer on, you see, you can deepen that up a little bit. But that sanguine, not sanguine, what's it called? Number seal P60, P660, 660. That's going to make some very dark shadows. So I really like that one. So that's going to work quite well. So if anybody's got any questions, pop them in caps. Hopefully, I think that probably would have a highlight on it as well, but just going to kind of see if we can build up just a little bit, because we want to leave a space for some black, sorry, that seal colour for some kind of dark. So I'm just going to put this colour on here, and this side as well, but I'll put my hand on that if I don't do that. So just want to take, even though that's on that side, you really want to take off any dust, because you don't want that dust. You really don't want that dust on there, because sorry, the eraser, because it's going to just mix in with everything else. So you do need to get rid of that every time. So if I move that up there slightly, we can work on this section. So most of this is dark. Most of this is very, very dark, with the exception of that and this. I think the rest of it is going to be this. Again, what we do? Oh, I'm down here now. So it's all very dark, and it's a lot darker than up there, but seems to be a plate on there, so I'm just going to put again. I've got a nice flat edge on here, so there's no pencil lines. That's quite nice. And it's the lightest, softest touch. There's no dust appearing. Every little bit of scrap of colour that I'm scratching is actually sticking to that page. That's quite nice. There's no extra dust. I'm just going to go over there again, see if I can. There comes a point where all you can see is dust, and you realise that you cannot get any more out of there. So we'll leave that, we'll blend that and see what happens. So although I've changed the colour very slightly, most of this is a dead flat colour waiting for highlights and low lights and shadows. I think that would be very dark, but that's not actually working particularly well. I think it's because I've just got to use this. Once you push down and round, you get circular motion, so sometimes you've just got to use the correct end. Because it's a big space and we don't really want it to be in little circles, really. So this is the boring bit. This is like your underpainting. So I'm going to have to stop as well because my arm's a little bit not perfect today. So sometimes it's quite good to get marks, and there's a few marks on there which are not going to be too far out, so I'll just well, let's have a look at the bottom of the bus. And again, that's got to be dioxidine purple here. And again, I've got a tendency to scratch down because I want it darker, and I've got to learn not to do that because I'm just going to create dust that's going to just disintegrate. I can get the darkness on the next layer when I start to put more detail in and turn it into a bit kind of a. Now the steps at this side, the step is on this angle, so this should be darker. I seem to have lots of things on my desk. So my other daughter's coming back from university next week, so I think she's going to give me a hand to move things about. And I do want to take this dark off here because that's going to be an important corner, because here it's going to be a really nice highlight, so I don't want any darkness on that corner, so it has to end where it ends, kind of thing. I don't really want that to go over, so again I'm going to clean my little, just very carefully stroking it. There's no point being too rough because you'll just rip the baby wipe, but if you can just comes almost perfectly clean, so that's quite nice. Just make sure we've got no bits of dust. Especially in the centre of the crease of the page, that's where you get all your bits and pieces. I think it gets trapped in there. So we had the bus, and there's the screen with the bus as well, so once we finish we can then put that dark shadow over, because then that will prove that that's lighter than this. I think I'm going to do that window next because my hand's not going to be touching it. So inside it's going to be some kind of fawny brown colour, kind of. Oh, before I do anything else, I just have to take this out because I want it to be red. I don't want any purple in there whatsoever. And if it's easier to take it to the side rather than scraping it right all the way across, then just carefully brush that off. So we could actually put that orange. I didn't get that orange. I don't think I got that right, that red. Let's have a bit of a play. So we'll put the picture there, and we'll put some plain paper there. Oh yes. If I smudge it, it's a good colour. So we'll put that in. Probably use this little tiny one for this little soft pastel. Doesn't seem to be coming clean, but I think somebody's shows you how to clean these, so that would be quite good. And we wanted that bright orange, but we didn't kind of want it really in the face, so I'll play about with that a bit later. The tiniest amount of but it's got to start with getting rid of all the white, so we can then build on just with another layer or two of something else. Right, we wanted this kind of murky dark colour for the window next. So let's have a look. Yep, that would be quite good. So a gentle amount of this. And again, it's the lightest touch. And that one was Burnt Carmine 610. And we've got our clean eraser. Sorry, our clean blender. So if I move that to that side there, you can see for the moment all I'm doing is just pushing a little bit of this colour in here. The window's a bit streaky, so it would be a good idea to do streaky kind of motions rather than little circles. So again, sometimes you get a better effect if it's kind of a little bit blurry, because that's what's actually happening. That seems to be a little bit lighter. We need some kind of dark greys and browns in there, possibly. I wonder what would happen if I just coloured the whole thing in that colour, apart from, I think I'll do that. Oh, that's the inside of the bus. I don't know why that's going to be that colour. So this is sepia 530, so it's going to give kind of a darkish kind of. I think I'm probably going to just, if I change my mind, I can go over this with the eraser and take it all out again, and I've still got the dark background, so I think I might just do that, because in theory that should just give me a kind of a dull, blurred, something is going on in the background kind of thing. I have no idea why they've drawn this grid at all, but you should always draw what you see, really. I might just put the tiniest bit of this seal P660 just on this bit, because I wanted this to be slightly darker. But there will come a point when I will be just creating dust, so we've got to be a bit careful. Excuse me. So thanks for joining, everybody, and we should. I'm going to make a coffee in a second because I feel a coughing moment going on. So I hope this isn't too boring watching somebody just scribbling. But as you can see, there's some kind of dust particles appearing. So I'm going to put that baby wipe there to catch all that. Excuse me. And I'm going to blend that, and that should take me up to the that should take me up to the hour and the end of part 2. So we'll just give that a bit of a blend. Could be audio bark alert. I think there's something going on outside. Not quite sure what it is. So I can maybe darken the background a little more. Excuse me. So there's lots of little small steps with this kind of way of working. Excuse me. Excuse me, I can feel that I'm just running out of breath, so I'm going to go make a quick tea. Oh dear. I'm just going to take that off because I want that really, really bright. Oh dear, excuse me. Yeah, it's got to be coffee time. So I'll pan out and I'll leave you with what we've done so far. Oh, excuse me. Gosh. So it doesn't look brilliant at the moment, but as I say, this is just a base coat. So sorry guys, I'm going to have to go have a quick coffee. So this is the end of part 2 of Harry Potter's colour book, the night bus page. Thanks for watching.